here, and in this video I'm going to demonstrate the proper way to calibrate a turntable and the difference between a cheap turntable and a actually halfway decent one. Now I have two turntables here which are good examples of a cheap turntable and one that's a better quality. Now this one here is a Technics SL D2. This one here is kind of the cheap ones that you would pick up like at Walmart and shit like that. It is a Teak PA688. Now, the big difference in these two, well, one of them is weight. This one here is very, very light, very, very flimsy. This one here weighs approximately around like 9 to 10 pounds. Okay, there's a metal plate that is underneath this thing that basically helps absorb any shock, helps absorb any type of noise, gives it some weight to balance itself out a little bit. Now there's rubber pads underneath these turntables. Now this one here, as you can see how much travel it is, there's a rubber pad with a spring inside it, acts like a shock absorber. So if you have wood floors with a basement or a crawl space, somebody's running or dancing in front of this thing, it's going to absorb that vibration. You won't be hearing it through your speakers. This one here, nothing. I'm hitting the table when I move it, or the countertop when I move it. It's got rubber pads on underneath it, but it's got no travel. Also, it has no suspension on it at all. Now, these are cartridge alignment tools, and I'll get to that in a minute. These things here, you can't use a cartridge alignment tool on this on this turntable. There are no adjustments. This is basically pre-set up from factory to where you can't do shit with it. There's no anti-skate, there's no counterbalance adjustments, and there's no head shell adjustments as far as the cartridge and aligning the cartridge properly with the head shell so you could play a record without any problems. Now these turntables here, if you ever listen to, if a turntable is not aligned properly, there are things that you're going to hear. Horns, trumpets, violins will sound distorted and crunchy. They won't sound like crystal clear. Vocals, the S sound will sound like it's static. Cymbals will kind of blend into each other. They won't sound like a separate cymbal. You'll hear a different tone in it, but it'll kind of blend into itself. And that's how you know that a turntable isn't really properly adjusted. Some turntables are adjusted a little bit closer, so you may not notice the cymbals, but you'll hear like the S sounds like static, or you'll hear trumpets that they just, horns and violins just don't sound right. They don't sound crystal clear or clean. These turntables here, you can adjust almost everything on them. The cartridge is adjustable. You can slide it forward or backwards. It's got an anti-skate adjustment and a counterbalance weight adjustment, so you can basically get the right downforce on the needle. You can also replace the cartridges on these with other cartridges. Now, this one here is an Audifon, I think it's an Audifon OM5, and the other one that I use is a Shure cartridge. Now, there's a reason why I have two different cartridges, because one cartridge plays better with, say, like pop and kind of like not disco, but rock music, and the other one plays better with kind of metal, like Iron Maiden and Black Sabbath albums and so on. Now, these turntables here, they're like I don't want to say a starter turntable or whatever, but the problem with this is you don't want to play your favorite album on this turntable over and over again, because you can't properly align the cartridge or even the counterbalance, and you don't know what the anti-skate is set to. These will end up playing, if you play your favorite album over and over, these will end up cutting the groove or rubbing up against the sidewall of the album and creating a new groove. If you ever play that same album on a turntable that is set up properly, you basically ruin that album with this. It'll sound like shit on something that is properly set up, but you won't notice the difference on this one here because it's already did its damage. Now, these turntables here, you can get them nowadays. You can get them with a USB output on them, and the USB is basically for plugging it into the computer and recording or making MP3s out of your vinyl. This one here doesn't have that, but it does have, let me see if I can find it. There is a, turn on some light. a preamp built into this. And what that preamp does is, a lot of the older receivers, they had phono input on them. As the years went on, they kind of got rid of the phono input. Things were being switched over to the CD, but they still kept the cassette as well. But phono was the one that they ended up taking off. As a few more years went by to current, they started putting back the phono input, especially on the higher end receivers and the higher end home theater systems, because people do have vinyl. They still listen to vinyl. Well, when they got rid of the phono input, well, a record player is not going to work properly because of it needed the phono preamp in order to hear the needle or the stylus. Now, they end up putting a preamp built into the turntable, so you could plug the turntable into an AUX or a CD input or a cassette input. This way you could still have your vinyl listen to it and everything else. My problem with them is when they're built onto their turntables, even the Pioneer, I can't remember the model number, but Pioneer makes one that has a phono preamp built into it too. They're distorted. The sound is a little bit overdriven, and your album, especially with headphones on, you're trying to listen to it, your albums just don't sound right. Denton has done this, Pioneer has done this, and Teak is doing this too. A lot of other names have done it as well, and they kind of got rid of it on their newer shit. Or the preamp has gotten a lot better. But nowadays, people are either buying receivers that have phono inputs if they want to still listen to their records, or they buy a separate preamp that you put in line from the turntable to the receiver, and those work out pretty good. I haven't really read any bad things about them as far as the sound quality coming from them. Some of them are adjustable to where you can adjust the output of it so you're not overdriving your AUX input. But all in all, stay away from these turntables. Now, these are phono cartridge alignment tools, okay? And my personal turntable, this is a backup turntable that I use right here. My personal turntable is a Kenwood KD 500 with a Black Widow, Infinity Black Widow tone arm on there, and I also have an Otophon cartridge on that. This is the alignment tool that's only for that turntable. I cannot use these cartridge alignment tools for that. So this one kind of, I can't use that in the demonstration for what I'm doing now. Now, this here is from www.turntablebasics.com. This you pay for, it's a couple bucks, like $12 or something like that. The only problem with this here is that it doesn't fit on this turntable. The tone arm is way too close to the platter. It doesn't fit. There's no way. So, other alternative. EnjoyTheMusic.com will send you this card here for free if you send them an email. And basically what it does is it's the same thing as that. Just a different version of it. Now, if I put this on this turntable, remove the protective cover over the stylus, get this somewhat aligned up properly with where it's got to go. Now, what you want to do is you want to put the needle in that little dot in the center. Which sometimes could be a little bit of a pain in my ass, but it could be done. Alright, we are aligned in perfectly in the center. Now look, turn some light on it, focus a little bit better. Now you can see that cartridge, the whole head shell, is not even square in those lines at all. Now, align this up to the other dot. Sometimes you have to move it, sometimes you don't. We are still off. Focus this in a little bit better, it'd be great. There you go. We are still off. Now, that right there is going to damage your album. There's nothing you can do about it. There is no adjustments on that head shell. There's no adjustments on the tone arm. It is what it is. You can't move it in any way. That is going to damage your album, especially your favorite album that you play over and over and over and over again. And don't say you don't do that, because we all have. So that's the difference between a cheap turntable. They are going to damage your albums. Your albums, if you ever do decide to get yourself a better quality of a turntable that has these adjustments on there, those albums are going to sound like shit on there. Garbage. That's why there's so much dust on it, because it sits on a shelf down here. This was bought brand new from a garage sale. It was in the box and everything else, never been used. And one of my family members bought it and didn't know that, yeah, you don't want to use that. All right, the techniques. I don't use the anti-static slip mats because it raises the stylus up a little bit higher and puts it a little bit on a different pitch. I don't use these. I just use it for protection on the mat. Now, this is a direct drive turntable. There is no preamp or anything inside of here. Those two holes are basically to remove the platter from the machine. They do come off. Now, the biggest thing, let me plug this in. Another big difference from the two turntables is that this one here does not have anything to calibrate the pitch to unless you do it internally. And the problem with that is that you don't know if you are actually up to speed or not. That's what these mats come in for. You have a 33 and a 45 RPM. You get a strobe light, and these will actually line up to calibrate those turntables for their speed. This one here, on the other hand, turn it on. If you could see that, it's a little bit off. You see that the bottom line is what you're looking at, and you want to get it perfectly steady so it's not moving. That's how you calibrate your pitch on these turntables. Now let me unplug that. And these have like a 33 and a 45 speed, and that's about it. Now, here's the big kicker between the difference between this turntable and this turntable here. All right, in order to calibrate the weight, the counterbalance weight that's on your turntable, all right, these have the weight right there. And as you can see, it's set for 1.5. All right, so I'm going to put this basically to 0. All right, that's 0. And as you can see that the tone arm has kind of risen off of its stand. Now what you want to do is you want to make this perfectly balanced, straight, level. All right, there's no weight on it at all. Now for this Audifon cartridge, they recommend that you would set your counterbalance weight to 1.5. So I'm at 1.5 right now. Now it's set for the downforce on the stylus where it's supposed to be. Some people will put like on these ones here, a penny or a couple of dimes or something on the head shell, which this is the head shell. Don't do that. Replace your cartridge. Replace your stylus. The stylus is worn. That's why it's skipping across your album. Putting a couple pennies on it just cuts the record with the worn stylus, makes the record fucked up. Now, this has a anti-skate. The anti-skate you want to set to the same 1.5 as your weight. So basically that's set to 1.5. Alright, so now you are properly set up with that. Next thing you want to do is check out basically how square you are with the alignment. Now this I can use on here because it fits. There's plenty of room between the tone arm and the damn alignment tool. So what do you want to do with this? Well, there is a little dot in the center, which is very, very hard to see. In that little box, there's a little dot. And you want to put your, it's hard to see because it's mirrored, it's very, very hard to see. You want to put that stylus, the needle, right in that little square box. I'm not going to get it. Come on, you bastard. Alright, I am in there. And now as you can see, maybe, this is fucking square. I am square with that box and the head shell and the stylus and cartridge are all perfectly center. Now this one side here, basically you want to do the same thing. It's a little bit hard to see because it's mirrored. You get used to it after a while. Lighting kind of doesn't work out very well. All right, come again there. Right there. As long as I don't breathe, it won't move. This one here is perfectly even with that fucker too. I'm not holding the angle right of the camera. So therefore, that needle will be riding the groove perfectly even. The anti-skate will help the needle from riding one side of the groove to the other side of the groove on the album. So that way you're not going to wear out your needle, and you're not going to wear out the groove of your albums in either spot. Now, with this turntable here, because of the way the cartridge is lined up, this part of the album is going to sound like shit, and when it starts getting closer to the spindle, it's going to start sounding better because this thing starts lining up closer to where it's supposed to be on this portion of the album. This portion of the album is going to sound like ass because this is way off. So that's what and plus there's another thing you want to do too. Now, I do a thing where, you get some of these small bubble fucking things, all right? And you want to make sure that your record player is basically even. So I put it close to the center of the spindle and turn it a little bit, and that'll show you if you are level. If you are not level, then prop up something, a piece of paper, cardboard, whatever, underneath the leg. That way, or your table that you have this on, make sure it's level, because that will also mess up the way that the needle rides. So if you're tilted, say on one side, one angle, well, now that needle is going to kind of be riding a little bit on that side wall of the album. That'll also wear out your needle and your album too. So these are some of the differences between a better quality turntable compared to a cheap turntable. Now, if you find like the old Marenzas, old Pioneers, the old Kenwoods, the old Onkyos, if you find those from, say, the middle of the 70s to about the early 80s, those are actually good turntables. They got some weight to them. They're made very well. Some of them don't have a lot of plastic. They have wood bases on them. They still have the weight to them. You may have a J-style tone arm, or an S-style tone arm, that's what this is. Or you'll have a straight tone arm like this on there. Some people prefer this style of a tone arm compared to the straight one. To me, it doesn't matter as long as I can get the cartridge to align properly. That doesn't make a difference. Now, the Black Widow tone arm has a straight low mass tone arm on there, and it's got an awesome sound to it. So yeah, this tone arm here I can actually change out for a better quality tone arm as well, but I really don't have to. This thing works out pretty good. They do make a lubricant that you put inside of these bearings. There's actual bearings inside of here that help keep it free flowing. This does not have that. There's no bearings in this thing. Basically, it's just a pivot with a pin in it, and that's it. So hopefully this helps you guys out when deciding on buying a turntable or properly setting up. Again, these tools you can get online. You could download and print out your own cartridge alignment tools. In fact, in this bag here, I've got a shitload of stuff for doing so. Different types of gauges for calibration and everything else. And this is, my Black Widow tone arm, papers, phono cartridge tools that I keep with this turntable. Again, I'm not going to unplug the KD500 turntable is kind of a big, bulky, heavy turntable. It's got a base. It almost looks like it's a stone countertop. Very, very heavy, number one. And I don't feel like disconnecting everything and bringing it down here. So hopefully this video helps you guys out. You guys take care. Have a good one. And sorry it just took 20 minutes of your time. Sorry I can't give it back to you. Take care.